are open. Okay, I'd like to declare the meeting open. I'd like to call for apologies for this meeting. I've got two apologies. One's Mayor Quigley and one's Councillor Higgins. I'd like to move and second those. Councillor Surrey and Councillor Derrick, thank you. Move on next item, confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting on the 3rd of December. Would someone like to move those minutes, please? Councillor Brewer and Councillor Walker, thank you. Move on to disclosure of interest. Councillor Irvin.
Yeah, I'll declare a disclosure of interest, non-pecuniary interest for in the Manager of Health and Development Services report, item 3, request for a covenant exemption. That my potential employer is involved in that request.
Any other further disclosures? So just have a mover on that, please.
We can move
Don't move that. Not that
that
one.
to declaration.
Declaration, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Irving, so is it your intention to stay or to?
Oh no, I'll leave during that
Leave that.
item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is Merrill minutes. We measure away today, so we haven't got any Merrill minutes today. Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, which is report by committees. The first committee meeting is the Mining and Energy Related Council, New South Wales, AGM. Could I have a member, please? Councillor Irving, and second to Councillor Bruce.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, there are in fact 2 minutes there. You'll see in the title that there is the AGM, the annual general meeting, and also the ordinary meeting held different times but on the same day.
Councillor Irving and Councillor Bruce, would you like to move both of them as one? Yep. Thank you. Councillor Irving?
Yes, I'd like to just, the minutes are very thorough, and I'd just like to add a few things that did come out of the meeting, if that's okay, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, that were quite informative. So Dr. Alex King is the Executive Director of Resources, Policy, Planning and Programs for the DPIE. And he was statement on coal exploration and mining in New South Wales was very informative. I guess one of his main points was that they look at, not that coal is relevant to us directly, but indirectly in terms of moving towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It is of our interest to inform. So they're looking at each project by project. So it's not across the board decisions, and they make these decisions as to whether a coal mining project goes ahead or not, which was interesting. And so I guess the idea behind that is to make sure that as a state we are working towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions in line with the Paris Accord. And what also was of extra interest is Roy Butler, a member of the Barwon, did point out a few concerns in terms of accessing coal seam gas, where we have to drill down through good water to get to the coal seam. And he also pointed out that aquifers, yeah, you had to extract water, good water from aquifers to be able to access the coal seams. And he talked about the exportation already of gas to Asia, talked about 3,000 petajoules, and at the moment. And then also Greg Lamont, the CEO, spoke about a submission on behalf of the MERC that he made to the government in relation to state significant developments and how the importance of involving councils more. Yeah, which is pertinent to us in terms of the Western Slopes pipeline. And BPA's voluntary planning agreements, it was affirmed that they're applicable to renewable energy projects, and it was confirmed that Warranshire Council are on the reference group of the Central West Renewable Energy Zone, which is good news for us in terms of keeping informed and hopefully benefiting either directly or indirectly from those projects. Thank you. Mr. Levine.
Any other comments? We might just note, you seconded it, we note, councillor Evans' report. Yeah, you have noted that. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next move. Put it to the vote, please. All those in favour? Against? Yeah. Thank you. We'll move to the next meeting of the Warren Public Arts Committee held on the 17th of December 2020. Can I have a move to that, please? Councillor Sergi, Councillor Irving, Councillor Sergi.
Yeah, just a bit of a quick update on it. We had our meeting back on the 17th of December. Within that meeting, we had the phone link up with Sam Brooks, who's the artist involved. We put forward all the ideas of the idea of what we're looking for to go on the water tower rather than what he actually presented. So he's now working on that. I had an email back from him the other day. I've been following him up to say that he's now working on it. But there was some things that came out of that meeting which were to do with the structure of the tower and a few other things that were raised. And I'm still just waiting feedback from the council on how that went and what information is coming back from that. So basically, we're doing another meeting very soon. I think it's about the 10th or something. I could be wrong. But until we have some information back on that feedback of those questions that were raised at that time, I don't think it would be prudent to have the meeting because we really can't confirm anything with Sam as to where it's up to. I am a little bit concerned is that we were hoping to have this done within the sort of March period. And we're heading into February in a couple of days, so I just want to make sure that we don't get left behind with what's happening. But I mean, we've been lucky with the weather. It's been too hot, so it's delayed us. But I'd like to see this. I don't want to see it dragging on for the sake of trying to get feedback that we need urgently need to make sure that this thing is going ahead to the best of all of our knowledges.
No, so you're just basically going to say we're going to delay the next meeting until we get all the
Until
information.
I know what
All
the
the
information
information.
coming back from council are as to how the structure of the tower and the cleaning of it and all that sort of stuff. So the other thing I'd like to mention was the grant funding that we applied for through the CASP funding, the Country Area Support Programme. We had asked for 5,000, but there's very limited bucket of money in that grant. It's less than 18,000, and we were blessed with, we actually managed to get 2.5 grand. So it's better than nothing. The other thing that I did come to from the meeting that we had at Outback Arts was there's another slightly bucket of money that's come through, and it's about a $10,000 grant, which I think the email through to council. Can't be used for any particular project as such other than the celebration of the project being finished. So it would be ideal to be able to apply and hopefully maybe get that grant of $10,000, which would allow us to have an opening for not only the mural, but also the fact that it's in the pool area and the splash park. It would be a really good event. So I'm not sure whether anything has come out of that. But I did send all the information through the council when I got back from Outback Arts. So it's just a matter of whether or not it's been applied for. I can't quite remember the actual close-off date, but I think it's pretty close.
It's just asking.
Yes, councillor.
Well, it's just about the pharmacy.
Yes, there's a couple of things in there in relation to the pharmacy. They wanted to look at putting a mural on their walls which would reflect the history of what the pharmacy did within the Warrenshire and in relation to Anderson's that used to own it. We have sent, I believe the letter's gone back, but we did request council to send a letter asking for a bit more information. I think they were looking for something along the lines of what had been done at Bridgemont's New Agency, but that was actually done not by council, it was done by, I think it was the Windows in the Wetlands. So we're just not 100% sure. So again, that's another one we've asked for more information before we can look at it. But again, it would have to be related to grant funding. There's no money in there just to be able to do these. And there's a whole pile of buildings within the Shire that we would like to have a go at if people are acceptable of it, to have some murals put up. But again, it's all related to what funding is out there to allow us to do.
Councillor Brooks.
Sorry, two questions. One is, can we clarify murals versus window displays? Are they, what's the definition of mural in your mind? Is that painting? Or,
A mural to me is very much like street art, like what you see on the water towers and stuff that you see around other areas. Paintings, I suppose it just depends on what people see as a painting and what's a mural. To me, there's not an awful lot of difference between them, except that maybe murals are bigger. I honestly can't, I'm not an artist, so I can't sit down and quite define which one's which, but we would like it to be reflective of being, it's not what we advertise. We don't want it to be an advertisement. We want it to reflect on the history of.
but the pharmacy want to put a window display of historical photographs. Is that what?
Well, that's what we're waiting on for more information,
Okay.
because in the letter that they sent to us, it was just a wee bit vague as to what we were trying to identify what they were looking for, so that's what we asked for.
And the second thing is, with the painting of the water tower and the cleaning that you alluded to, that's, it's like money. That's a big job, I suspect, cleaning the tower. Not that I've done any of those things, but is that a barrier to moving forward if you can't agree on something there?
I'll just finish some of the two managers.
Yeah, thank you, councillors. Look, at the last committee meeting, there were 4 things that I was asked to go away and have a look at. And what we're trying to do is lower the payment to Sandy, the contractor, because there are ancillary things other than the actual painting. For example, there's construction fencing that we require. Now, we have some of that at the depot, so we will indicate that we'll be able to provide that. There is the cleaning of the concrete tower itself, so we're in negotiations with the fire and rescue to see whether they can want to have an exercise in doing whatever they need to do with their hoses and clean the tower. There's a little bit of discussion happening around that. We're just not sure on that structural integrity of the tower to take a very solid force of water. So we're waiting on that information, but that's not too far away. The third thing was, can council provide a cherry picker of sort? Because the artist has allocated, I think it's $15,000, councillor, in the quotation for some sort of elevated platform, be it a cherry picker or an elevated platform. There's some issues with that as far as we're concerned, because the access to the building, it does have a fence around it. We used to have an old chlorination. We still have a chlorination building there, and then there's the grass, and the tank was leaking, so it's very, very soft. And I don't know that you're going to get the height with an elevated platform immediately adjacent without having a gizmo or a machine that has quite substantial outriggers. So we're struggling to find something to assist in that. And the fourth thing, Councillor Serviti, I just can't quite recall, but they're the things that we're responding back to the committee on to try and assist the process. We have the tender. We have a certain amount of money, not all of it, we're trying to assist with that process.
Just if I can, on the email that Sam sent me back when he replied to that he was working on the second draft, he did mention in there that when he does send it back, there will be a more comprehensive
Costings.
yeah, costing stuff
Okay, that'd be
to
great.
reflect on after the discussions and stuff that we had. I mean, I've come into this committee a little bit later than when it started, so I'm still a wee bit vague as to what actually happened in the past in relation to the structure being sound enough to do all of this stuff to it. So we just want to make sure that we don't put anybody in danger by trying to put this thing up when we've got some issues with how we're situated. So we're erring on the side of caution.
Can I just add one other point too that was raised? The mural itself will be top to bottom and 360 degrees. Yeah, it's not just one sort of panel.
And also the meeting for the next meeting for the Warren Public Arts is on the 2nd of March. Yeah, so if you get some information earlier, we can bring that meeting forward.
Bring the meeting forward as soon as we have it.
Any other discussions there? We have a raise of hands there, please. Paul? Yes? Thank you. Then on the next one, on the 14th of January. Can I have a mover and a second for that, please? Yes? I'll second it. Yep. Councillor Walker?
Well, I wasn't actually the chair, Stephen was really interested in that because didn't have a chair because he was the one. So, would
Right,
we get
yeah.
someone to go through it, please, if that's possible?
I want to move over to our manager of engineering to do a bit of report on that meeting, if that's all right, please.
Thanks very much.
Okay, there was a couple in order of the items that were discussed at that meeting. First one was the restoration of the internal and external walls of the Nevertire water reservoir, which we're currently chasing quotations for at the moment, sorted out. It's not a simple one because of the chemicals that are involved, or chemical factors about the water and the concrete as well, that they're currently there. So we have the appointed contractor to be wary of those situations. There's not a lot of decision, final decisions we can make until the quotations have been finalised. There will be different styles of contract exit format to be used on the exercise. The next one was the Collie water storage. Well, again, we're collecting quotations to do that. I think it'll be fair cost. I don't think there'll be anything inside this side of budget time. I think the matters will all for the three items will be resolved in regard to next year's budget rather than the 2021 situation. I think it's given this time to gather those prices and prepare the documents. The Collie one is quite simple, but involved a fair bit of technology with different elements of it, different phases of it, from a low tank rather than high tank. The third one was the projects, which was presented by our project manager regarding the sewage treatment works, which we're trying to organise a day out over there for the sewage treatment works. The airport, not the airport, the water supply to the airport was fine.
There's also a discussion about the coronation of the coronation of the three walls too, and upgrading.
Upgrading the boat, without again subject to the quotations when they come in. So it's a matter of ongoing matters that will be coming back to the committee and going to council for approval for monies, but I'm quite confident that the monies will far exceed to the bank at the moment.
Yeah, Councillor Brook?
Are there any health implications by delaying the works as coronation upgrade deals?
The situation's not going to change from what it is today. Last weekend we had a coronation problem that Nevertire that was fixed on the spot, so I think we're just able to deal with the situation as it is at the moment. And the only delay is waiting until there's money available on it, and we can't do the work without the money being available. So I don't think there's any concerns with any risks. It doesn't enhance the risk. We'll leave it for another 2 or 3 months until we can have money allocated.
That's the question. Is there funding out there for these type of projects?
From time to time.
Yeah, I
Definitely there is. I'm not aware of.
There's nothing on the board at the moment. It'll be a priority job for our newly appointed project manager assistant or the chasing grants. There's quite a few things that chasing grants. All the two just running up and saying what
Councillor,
I reported previously, that we would explore grant opportunities, especially in relation to the Nevertire Reservoir. So, yeah, it was said that we would be doing that, so I guess, it would be good to make sure that we have it.
I think we're pretty keen on that. Anything that comes along, particularly, and previous project officer was there, she was fantastic at bringing things like that to our attention. It makes the job of the definition of the grant.
I think the best thing about this report is that out of it, we're going to get a lot of quotations back what it's going to cost us to upgrade our building system. And we can go forward a lot better, and so it's going to cost us this money. So if we've got to chase money to put in budget over a 10-year period, we should go forward and be able to achieve what we want to achieve. Councillor Walker, yeah.
Discussion about the combination upgrade, there's levels too. There was discussion about you can get sort of you can get like the Holden or you can get the Rolls Royce.
No, the other about it, you can get Rolls Royce, I think,
so that'll all come in the quotation, the information you receive.
the size of the communities, and there will be variations on all of them, and different levels of, not necessarily different levels of coronation, because the entry will have the appropriate level of coronation. It's a matter of how elaborate our equipment is to complete that task.
The beauty of this report is we're going to be a lot better organised this time than what we were last time on our water upgrades. So, yeah, get a measures, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I just want to bring to your attention, we have a report, item 7, under the Executive Manager Finance about application to T-Corp, Treasury Corporation for a loan. In that report, there is 750,000 to be allocated should you resolve the way that the recommendation is going to go towards the refurbishment of the Nevertire Water Reservoir. And in light of what Councillor Irving has suggested about chasing grants, we certainly do chase grants. And if in between approving the loan as is before you and the work being undertaken, we can grab a grant, we certainly will.
Any other further discussion, councillors? Okay, we'll move it for a vote. All for? Against? No against. Okay, we'll move on to the next one of the meetings held on Tuesday, the 19th of January 2021. Trying those meeting reports. Councillor Irving, yes, thank you. And Councillor Bruce. Councillor Irving.
I just have three questions. It's exciting that we have Alison McLeod. I was wondering what her job title was. She got a job title. That's a good question.
No, she doesn't have a job title, so she is a contractor. So she is looking at our comms at the moment. It's been a little bit slow in the takeoff because of the Christmas break. And it's been my experience in the past as well, when you introduce these types of organisations, it's about getting the organisation to understand what we're trying to achieve, and that is
It's good to have someone with her expertise, giving input. Thank you. And the second question, just related to the parks in the general business without notice. So, yeah, it's good to see that we don't have to engage contractors to mow the parks. I just wondered, moving forward, how do we deal, or whether we've already been informed of this, remind me. So when we do get a backlog of mowing, is it because we did have to put off some stuff kind of during the drought that we got behind in this, or is it because are we lacking staff, or have we got other strategies in place to address this in future?
Yeah. Mr Deputy Mayor, councillors, that's a question that I've been asked a couple of times, particularly when you look back on previous years, why all of a sudden have we got contractors coming in to assist? Councillors, I'm not aware in my short period here if it is as a result, you've indicated, of staff being put off during the drought. I'm not aware of that at all. The fact is that we have been able to maintain our parks in previous years, and why not this particular year? It's put down to the fact that we've had quite substantial growth, and we have had a couple of machine failures as well, and we've just had to get the backlog done by filling in, utilising contractors. Not a great situation for us, because contractors are a whole lot more expensive than our own staff, but leading this right out from executive manager of engineering not to employ contractors in the market.
Yes, thank you. So, it's not in the business paper, but in the Mannix minutes itself. I just, where it says, it's on page 7 of the document, of the Mannix minutes, in item 4.2, the project status. Talks about the council chambers development and project on track, in quotes. End of December 2021. That's the time frame, end of December 2021, to have the project finished. I guess what I would be looking for is, say, rather than project on track, or we've often been told, well, in previous years, in November of 2018, that the project would be finished at the end of 2020, and now the project's on track, but I just feel that maybe that reporting could be changed to, not just put project on track, because we've been told project's on track and it hasn't been. I just don't know.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, it'll be open well before December 2021, so we will change the date. You will recall, councillors, there was a report up at the last council meeting allocating additional funds to get to a completed state of this building. I think we also recognise that work would cease over the Christmas period, I think at that stage from the end of November through to February. And I understand from the contractor that staff will be here next week, continuing on with the works. An anticipated completion date? Yeah.
Really, the cabinet maker for the front counter. He came in and measured last week, and he's anticipating probably the week leading up to Easter. He's not looking at putting that in, so he's not looking at April before the front counter will go in, and there's a lot of logistical things that Service New South Wales has got to line them in as well, so I've been speaking with them, and they're probably happy to have that lead time. But that is basically the projects that are going to be undertaken. It's the finishing off of the outside of the windows at the back of the office, and then the internal fit out. So, yeah, no, that report. I don't know why it's just 2021, but I don't believe that we'll have the actual main entry finished probably until the end of April as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other? I'll start. Councillor Serney first, please.
Just a query with regards to the Newmar Waste Depot. The last meeting that we had, you were doing the tender out for the retaining wall stuff. How are we going? Have we had that?
The status of the retaining wall, is it the specifications been completed or draft completed? We are in the stage of checking it. And we're hoping that we'll be able to bring the panel within the next, before the end of next week. And we're going to be having a fortnight period, advertising period. So,
Okay, so our next.
we will, sorry, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy, we will plan in a waste committee meeting once we've got the vendor panel results, so we've got something useful to worthwhile to talk to council about with the acceptance of quotations.
That's where we're getting so close to the pointy end. I just want to make sure that we don't sort of slip backwards.
Just a bit of explanation there. We are hoping they are quotations. We are going out advertising those quotations, not as tenders. Tenders are $250,000 and have to be resolved by council, which does slow the process down. If they're quotations under $200,000, management can make it, or the committee can make a decision. So very hopeful. Our estimated cost is about $150,000.
Thank you.
Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. My question relates to the item 3, the 50-hour agreement. Could I get some information to understand how many people that applies to and what effect that will have on the budget, and how long will that agreement go for this time around? Because the last one went a very long time and was never reviewed. Well, it wasn't reviewed for quite some time. My concern revolves around budget more than anything.
And
I'll pass this on to the engineer.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. The agreement is still in draft format. It's being negotiated between the union, employees and management, which is no longer progress on. The work currently being road works, or rural road, whether it's not only road works, there's other works, bridge works, always something into the rural area, are working under overtime rules and as per the local government order at the moment. There's no agreement in place. The agreement will not be operational until it's been signed up by all the parties.
Sure. So how many people do you think it will affect?
I
And
mean,
what effect on the budget?
80% of the outdoor workforce.
Yeah. And I wasn't aware that we were renegotiating with the unions on a 50-hour agreement, and therefore that the adjustment to the budget, what are we looking at there?
The USU have never been part of the agreement in the past, never, because they have not accepted it. There's been a change of vision by the USU. Council can get benefit out of it. The staff are happy to negotiate with the agreement, and therefore the union will become involved in it. I personally would prefer the union to be part of the strategy so that it can be more cross-effective arrangement.
Just a quick one there. How about the next workshop we have? We might have something on 50-hour agreement so everyone understands what it's all up to. Would that be a good idea?
Just mathematically, it's around about a 25% salary increase, because roughly based on hours, for those staff members, and that is some cost to council, no doubt. I'm sure we get a lot of more work done, that's the whole point of it, but at what cost? I'd just like to understand.
It is no different to what was worked in the past.
No, but we made a significant saving when we wound those hours back to the normal working week. That effect on the budget is what I'm concerned about. Not about whether people should or what they might get done, just basically a lens into the budget to make sure that we prepare for that.
The budget, don't forget, the budget has not increased to the same proportion that wages has, right, in the last 5 years, which has been a gross effect on the overall workings. Our allocation to rural roads has dropped off. Last year, the regional roads component had no statutory adjustment to it. In other words, it cost us about $32,000 because there was no increase, no indexation on it, and those type of things are affecting us all up. I think to be sending staff out in the scrub and expecting them to work for 8 hours a day and do very little for the other 16 hours, sure. No, not many of us sleep for 16 hours or. No, that's not in question. It's just, it's not, it's a fact that we've got to get efficiency out of it. It's going to cost us money. And I think an agreement at time and a half rather than double time is much more. Sure.
I think if I can just bring something in here, like the last lot of years when this I brought in back in the 90s was to get the machinery. The machinery was getting a lot dearer to buy. You've got to do the work on the machinery to make it worthwhile, to make that machinery pay for itself. And the staff are happy to do the extra hours to do the 50-hour agreement. But like engineering said, back then we never really had full union approval to do it all, but the works were happy to sign off on it. I think going forward, if we have a bit of a workshop, instead of putting Darren on the spot now, our manager of finance, to give us the numbers at the workshop, if that's okay, then we can go forward from there.
Yeah,
No,
it's maybe not missing my point. My point is simply this. We stopped it and absorbed those savings.
Right.
Now, in theory, we're going to reinstate that 50-hour agreement for a number of people. That's obviously a question of ask the unions, can we do it, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation. My question is simply this. Have we budgeted for the increase in salaries to manage this, or will this need to come out of some other restricted funds to cover the difference? Because I'm not aware that anywhere in there we have a plan for an additional, 12 hours a week for N number of people. So that's a parcel of money that's got to come from somewhere. Not a huge amount at the end of the day, but our job as councils is to scrutinise the budget and keep asking that, will this come in as a budget adjustment later on now that's been sprung on the finance team? Mr. Mayor, through the group, I think the ordeal is to get it back from, we all agree to work 10 hours as the staff do out there. The drivers of the vehicles when travel pay extra 2 hours and pay for 12. But the maximum under the agreement is 10-hour days. And any overtime is paid at time and a half rather than double time like it's being paid at the moment. So sort of, and also flexi days. We worked also at time and a half instead of 2 hours at time and a half and 8 hours at double time, which is I accept that, and I don't think Mr. Finance Manager will have any restricted funds that will be available for excessive levels of budgetary expenditures. So will we endeavour to keep the operation as cost effective as possible?
To answer your question, we'll bring it back to the workshop before anything's done so we can actually go down on the 50-year agreement, what costing is going to go from the Torrens Shire Council, so that the Manager of Finance has got time to be able to get all that data together for us. If that suits you?
Sure.
Okay, yep. Okay, Councillor Walker. Yes.
Well, the question I was going to ask is here, someone else brought together and said it was about the two council houses. And where was it? The last meeting we had, they were going to have a discussion with the builder to see how discuss the issues and have an agreement.
I'll move on to the gentleman.
Deputy Mayor, councillors, a discussion has taken place, took place prior to Christmas. I was involved in that discussion with Tilda, as well as with Mary Ann. We put our points of view forward. They did likewise. They have requested further information from us, which we have provided. So this is in relation to the construction or the preparation for the concrete slab. That information has gone back to them. We've also sent a letter back to them of defects that we see at this particular point in time. And also within that letter, we have asked that particularly for 8 Deacon Drive, that we have at least a 2-year warranty period. We still haven't got the keys for that house. There was still some monies outstanding to be paid to the builder, but we have asked for the warranty period to go from 12 months to at least 2 years. And certain works to be undertaken under the defects list. Now, I haven't seen anything to come back from the builder at this stage.
That's all, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Any other further business meeting? Sorry, Councillor.
Where I've got to ask in the beginning, just a query with relation to, we did have a program set up where you had a couple of workers that you met on a regular basis, villages. Is that still happening?
Yes, it's still happening. The village team is operational at the moment.
So what days do they come in?
Couldn't tell you.
Are they
I'll find out for you.
Are they allocated 1 or 2 days?
Sorry?
Are they allocated just 1 or 2 days?
2 twos. Two.
To both of villages. Okay, yeah, but you can just give me a rough idea of what days. Thank you.
Any further? Okay, for the movers and seconders of that, would you like to put a part two to that, that the Vicky agreement goes to a workshop, so we can get some clarification? Movers and seconders, happy with that one? Okay, thank you. All for? Yep, everyone's for, none against. Thank you. We'll now move on to reports of delegates. The first one is the Warren Health Action Group meeting on the 15th of January.
Yes.
Councillor Bruce moving, second. Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yes, we had our inaugural meeting of the Warren Health Action Committee, known as WAC. What a acronym is. On the 15th of January. And our committee comprises of Rod Sandell, who know who everyone is and who they represent. I'll let you know. His community homes, me, the Warren Shire, Alison Stoker, Primary Health Network, Dr. Burke, Warren MPHS Health Council, Tony McCallery from Rotary, and Alison Payne, who is community and aged care, but she was an apology for the meeting. So basically, establishing the name and getting the committee. Mr. Sandell is the president, and I'm secretary treasurer. So we discussed how we're going, the requirements we need to run this committee. So we're looking into setting up a bank account, constitution, and we've got to have an ABN. So that's all progress at the moment. But the main thing is sort of looking at what our aim of our committee is. Certainly one of the things is trying to establish a dementia-specific unit, but I think the big thing is that we're looking at is improving primary health care for Warren Shire. And we've all got to go back, have a think about what we would like to see as the aims for this committee. So, so it's just trying to promote health in Warren. And also, too, the big thing is we need some professional support. So we've got to look into grants that could be appropriate for us. Funding so that we can put a business plan together and have someone do that for us. So that's going to be a big thing, looking at grants. So we'll, so we're pretty happy with where we're going with this, but we've just got to really have a set goals of what we want to achieve out of it, and hopefully get some great support from the community with it. That's about it for me. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from any other councillors? Okay, to move and second, would you like the information to be received tonight for the verbal report of Councillor Bruce?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, everyone, thank you. We'll move on now. We'll move on to reports of the General Manager. The first one is the outstanding checklist. Councillor. Yes, sorry. Yep. And Councillor Taylor. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, my questions are all answers by the committee report, so please happy to move.
Very cool like that, thank you. Yep. No questions, those in favour? Yep, Paul? Yep. Against? No one? Thank you. We'll move on to the next item of the committee and delegates meeting reports. Someone will do that one, please. Councillor Derrick, Councillor Irving. Thank you. Councillor Derrick.
Happy to move, thank you.
Okay. No, Councillor Irving.
Excuse me, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd just like to note, and I thought it was commendable for us to meet with the Warren Local Aboriginal Land Council Board. I think it doesn't go astray to be proactive to attend those meetings. So thank you. Was it the General Manager? Thank you, General Manager.
Councillor Walker.
You too, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I don't know who to ask, but I noticed on the 18th Murray-Darling Basin Authority is coming. What is I'm asking the manager, what areas of why are they coming, and are we getting, in this whole agreement, there was a person to be employed, money to be out there for someone to be employed, forget their position.
EDA.
And it wasn't EDA, I thought it was an EDA. When is that happening, and is this going to be brought up in the meeting? Please.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, councillors, the visit by the NDBA chairman of the board as well as the CEO is planned for February the 18th. They are doing a flying tour of the whole basin, if you like, over the week. So they're coming through. They have allocated, the first indication was half an hour here in Warren. We're going to try and extend that to an hour. That's how fleeting the visit is going to be. What it is, and the way it's been described to me, is that the chairman of the board is new to the position, and he is trying to get an understanding of the issues associated with those involved in the buyback. So they'll be coming to Warren. We were hoping for a meeting here in this particular room, but they are interested in having a look at the WOW Centre as well, Windows on Wetlands. So we've agreed that we will utilise the school building there and provide a presentation. The presentation has several parts, and this is a council presentation. It will be there, and I've discussed with the Mayor whether invitations go out to all of you. I would see no issues with that. In fact, I would encourage that. But what we'll be doing is we'll be talking about the issues associated with the buyback. So we're now going back 4 or 5 years whenever the process started. And we'll even talk about Burrendong and 120% in Burrendong, because in talking to the community representative, our community representative for the NDBA, he said they need to understand our perspective as far as interest is concerned. Even though it may not be directly linked to the NDBA, at least they understand the issues, and they rub shoulders with politicians all the time, and maybe they can assist us. So there will be a discussion about the water initially. There'll be discussions about what has been provided as a result of their grant monies, and then there will be a quick section on what we would like to see from the NDBA, more projects and the dollars. And what we will talk about there, obviously, is the EDA position, which was talked about in one of the grant offerings. I'm not sure whether it's the first or the second. Also, we'll talk about the levy again, even though we'll be applying, as we indicated, to the National Flood Mitigation Fund. We'll be talking about the Main Street upgrade. We'll be talking about tourism in the area, RVs, those types of things. There's one other. Money? I mentioned the levy. Of course it's money. Bob Christensen, that's right, which is to do with tourism and the RV side of things, and the connectivity, the wayfinding as well. So if we can squeeze that within an hour, that would be fantastic. They are here, as I said, for a very short period of time, seeing lots of different places along their journey.
Just a question, so will you read up about the proposed year as well?
Yeah, that's part of it.
And this is just the council, it's not open to the public this meeting, this is just...
So when you I agree with there, when you know a bit more about the timing, if we had, we'll get.
For sure.
And Mr. Deputy, just by saying, I'm hoping to get a package together. They want to see that package a week before they arrive. So, precious on us, we've only got a week to do that now, but I've been talking to staff in preparation of that package. So we can get that package done, get it sent away to the board, and that gives them some time to read through and understand where we're coming from. So their time here is well spent rather than wondering.
Okay, any other questions on the delegate meetings? No? Okay. Move on, all for? Against? Yeah, no one against. Okay, we'll move on now to reports of the divisional manager of finance and administration. Item number 1 is the reconciliation certificate. So, the mover and seconder on that, please. Councillor Walker. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Yep, thank you, Councillor. One quick question, second manager, please.
Councillor, you will see that there are 2 reports, 2 reconciliation certificates, November and December. The meeting we had in December was a little early for the November account, so
Thank you. Mover and seconder are happy to move both those reports. Thank you. Yeah, all those in favour? In favour. Second one is the reconciliation certificate for. No, we've done 1 and 2. Sorry, we're going to go down. We've done December now. I just got them to do both of them together. Sorry, they're both done. Thank you. Sorry, everyone. We have item 3 now. Statement rates and annual charges. Mover and seconder. Yeah, Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Bruce. Thank you. Councillor Sturdy.
I'm paying you moving recommendation, and just a comment that it's good to see that as of the 15th of January this year, we're still tracking, tracking on track the way we have been. We haven't gone backwards with the rates coming in, is what I'm trying to say.
Good comment. We've had a great season.
Exactly.
It's been making a good season. Okay, thank you. Yep. Let's show hands, all 4. No. Item 5, the preparation of the draft 2021-2022 estimates. Item 4, operational plan, sorry. Item 4, 2019-2020 operational plan and estimates. Can I have a mover and a seconder on that one, please? Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Irving. No, Councillor, no, I went back on.
Sorry.
Yeah, I moved in a second for that one. I've got Councillor White, Councillor Derek there, that's all I see there. Okay, just one clarification on item 4 there. On the top of the line it says 2019-2020. It's actually 2020-2021. So in the report. Also in the report as well.
On the workshop day.
According to April 2021 is the recommendation. The recommendation, we've just got to change that as well on item 3 that it says 14th of April 2021 not 2020. So mover and seconder are happy for those changes? Okay, that's fine, thank you. Councillor Sturdy, would you like that?
Yeah, no, one question I have is, it's 4 o'clock that we're starting. It's just, I'm going to be stuck in double for pretty much most of the day. So how long do you think it might go for? Because I will bust my gut to get back here, but I might just be a bit late.
Last year it went for 3 hours. We were there quite a while,
We were-
a long time.
Okay, so I'll just put in a little note that it could be late, but I will get here by now.
Councillor, this is a suggestion. If you wanted to defer, just tell me your reason, Darren. If you want to start at 5 to assist, and if that helps everyone, that's fine.
That work out?
I'll be directly involved with stuff, yes.
Recommendation, we'll just keep this in order. Would the members and secretaries be willing to put that down for the meeting instead of 4 p.m. start, it's a 5 p.m. start?
Yeah.
Everyone second happy with that? All councillors? Yep. Thank you.
Oh, we've got this, I don't think the next has.
Okay, no further comments? No? Okay. Let's, yep, 4.
That's right.
Yep, everyone, yep. No, thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5, which is the preparation of the draft 2021-2022 estimates, and the dates are right there. Councillor Carr and Councillor Chris, Councillor Carr.
So we'll move the recommendation, Mr Mayor. If we don't go to the minimum, we'll go beyond the April. I know there's a lot of councils out there that are applying for extra. 2% is pretty small.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Carr. Any other councillors? Okay. Thank you. Only comment I'll make there, last 3 years of drought, we have increased every year, where some councils haven't, and we're probably in a position now where they've got to ask for more rate increase. So by increasing every year, I think it does keep us in line, and we don't get behind April. So, yep, read council power complete. Okay, everyone, we'll just form the motion. All for, no one against. Okay, let's go to item 6. This is the bank guarantee. Can I have a mover and a second on this, please? Councillor Irving and Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Irving?
I'm happy to do that recommendation. Don't have any questions, it just looks straightforward to me.
Thank you. Okay, now further questions, we'll just go on. Paul? Yep. Sorry. Yep. No hands? Paul, no hands? Yep. We'll move on to item 7, this application to T-Corp for a loan of $4 million. Mover and a second on this, please. Councillor Walker? Councillor Derrick? Councillor Walker?
I'm happy to move the recommendation. I just would like to ask the manager of finance, in relation to what's semi-annual mean? To be repaid semi-annually?
Once a year.
Oh, okay. I never heard the.
That,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that was what in their form they had either if you want to pay it quarterly, semi-annually, or annually.
Thank you.
Biannually.
I would have said 6 months for that.
Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions from councillors? Councillor Irving?
Yes, Mr Deputy Mayor, just wondering whether we should add pending on grant, or do we still I feel like, or do we add pursuant of grants or not? Do we just how long's the process?
Chair, Councillor, I'm not 100% sure, and I mean, with the Nevertire Reservoir, we're hoping the 750 will do that anyway. And I think we're going back to the water and sewer, that was more for the chlorination area. The swimming pool refurbishment, we've already received the grant and spent the money. And also likewise with the sewer treatment plant, we've already received the grant some time ago. So that's just council's contribution. So I'm not sure with regard to waiting for the grant side of things, I'm not sure what you're requesting. But basically, T-Corp requires the application in by February so they can assess it. Obviously, we're looking at a drawdown date at the 30th of June. Yeah, so I'm not sure the question or what we do.
That's okay.
TCOG will not touch the council unless they borrow over $1 million. So taking the 750 for the Nevertime Rebel Reservoir out, we wouldn't go through TCOG again, basically.
I think the idea is if we do get community training bonus, it's probably the best way of doing it, and we can put that towards our budget. So the money's there to borrow, and we can get in there, well, we've only got a certain date to get in, so I understand where you're coming from. Councillor Walker.
I was just wondering, so you put this higher of 2% and 4%, you know, what,
Chair, no, I have no idea, that's why I'd like to put a couple of assumptions in.
I hope it's on the high side. The one thing's that.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favour? Against? No one against? Okay, we'll move on to item 8, is transfer of land to council via law of rates. I might just get the general manager or the manager of finance to do a quick deal this before we have a recommendation, if that's okay, please. A quick overview. It's all in there, but just.
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, we just received an email from a person who owned this block of land in Colli for the last 23 years and doesn't want any more, just wants to enter council. And I'm basically recommending that we not accept it. He's got other avenues he can look at if he wants to give it away to someone, because we've already got that much vacant land in Colli that the surplus to the council's there.
Because he's been paying the rates on it. So if he stops paying the rates for 5 years, he will end up with it anyhow, right?
Through Mr. Mayor, not necessarily we can put that to auction when we have sale for overdue rates.
That's what's happened in previous times, though, we've ended up with the land, haven't we?
So through Mr. Chair, yeah, back, well, probably 20 years ago there, Kimbara, I'm not called Kimbara Estates bought a lot of out of Colli. They were from Sydney and they basically, I think, said, then on sold it to a lot of people. I think we played one of them caught up with that. In the long run, we may, but then again, we may be able to operate a bit of money, which he tries to advertise himself.
It is a risk.
Maybe move the recommendation.
That's the recommendation for the second, please. Councillor Drews, all those in favour? Yes. Okay. Item 9, sale of land, 135 Dubbo Street. Councillor Vera, seconder. Councillor Brewer. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've been through this when we decided to put it to tender, and this is obviously the next step in that process with no tender being received. So I'm happy to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Any other? None? All those in favour? Against? Thank you. We go to item 10, which is the December 2020 budget review. Sorry?
I'll move.
Move it, Councillor Lee, second. Councillor Tull?
You want to suspend standing orders to the finance manager to speak on it?
Other councillors would like to have a suspend standing orders? Yes. Absolutely, member and seconder agree to suspend standing orders? We're going to.
Yep. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, so we have received a motion again by Councillor Taylor and Councillor Beach to suspend standing orders. Those in favour?
Those in favour? Yep. Against? Okay, we're going to. Manager of Finance to do a bit of review on them.
Through Mr. Chairman, my report basically stipulates all the major changes that happened in the document. I can go through the document line by line if you wish. I mean, I put comments next to each of the variations. I'm just not sure. Nobody go through the line by line of what we've done.
variations, I think.
Yeah, well, variations of with the economic adjustment. So, okay, on page 2, the farmland rates, we've adjusted that, we've reduced that by $18,425, which is basically due to land value objections. 2020-21, we rated under the new land values, and as what happens every year in the first rating year, we'll always receive people that have lodged objections to their land values. So basically, what's happened since 1st of July, we've lost about 20 odd grand in general farmland rates due to objections. Council can catch that back up next year, along with the normal 2.2% increase that we've just recommended an item 4 of my report, item 5 of my report. Residential rates, that was just a block that was split and we hadn't loaded on it, so we got an extra $351 there. The governance employee overheads, the adjustment for the recruitment of the general manager and additional salary, I basically I've done an assessment of the costs for the interim and the new general manager's package, and also the cost for the recruitment firm, and also the reimbursement of interview costs, etc. So we required an additional $52,600 there. With regard to the councillors and mayor's expenses, when we prepared the estimates back in March of last year, we were anticipating an election, so I basically the council's allowances and mayoral fees from the 12 delegates and not the 11 delegates, so we had a saving there of $12,612. The corporate income, with the airport line, we finally got our insurance refund, so that was $50,454, which was quite pleasing because we thought we were only going to get 30,000 from them, but they actually come to the party for a lot. The insurance the adjustment to the valuation fees, that's just adjusted to the actual expense that we were charged, so we had a saving there of $3,646. The engineering and works income 2920. We received the final subsidy for our old plant apprentice of $2.5 grand, and there was also some sale of old materials that we've increased that by. The engineering employee expenses, as stated in the comments, we did get a consultant in during the COVID time to look at a procurement of a water attendant, which cost us $6,000. But out of that, I've also transferred out of there the housing subsidy for our project manager and transferred that 7254 down further in the document, so there's no impact on the budget. Depot expenses, this one here come out of the blue. We had to do we've done some alterations down into the Shire Depot training room, toilets area. The doors and in the training room, you can smell basically urinals and things in the toilet. So we're just trying to make it so it's a bit more attractive, and then we can actually hold training sessions in there. Currently, no one would want to go in there because of the smell, and yeah, it was bad. Over the page, we come to the other employment overheads. We were advised by our workers' comp insurance state cover that they had made an error on our cost of claims when they were looking at our premium, and we were actually being charged an additional $134,000. I've reduced that amount due to our advice from them, and that was spread over to pay basically for it was worked out well to be able to pay for the additional governance costs and also the depot building operations and so forth. Private use of motor vehicle, 27,000 increased income, as we had additional employees taking up on the private use of the council's policy, and require an additional 10,000 for safety PPE. We've been buying some regulators and things just to comply with the WHS Act. Fire protection income, that's basically a contra entry. We would advise late December of our actual hazard reduction grant. So that's just income in and income out, basically. Okay. Okay, yeah, over page the COVID, we initially didn't put any estimate in for COVID compliance. As you can see, we've spent probably $33,000, and that's mainly due to having staff work on weekends to go and check and clean down our parks and gardens and things like that, and also the purchase of additional hygiene products. We're actually ramping that down with regard to the health requirements. We're not needing to go and do that on such a regular basis. So we're hoping that the additional 40,000 will that will be enough. The Castlereagh and Macquarie County Council, that's just an adjustment to the actual contribution that we had to pay. Again, the annual garbage, $49, that was just adjusted to the actual amount that we levied. When we get to the depreciations, as I stated in the report, we revalued roads, bridges, footpaths, cycleways, stormwater drainage, water and sewer last year, and when we're looking at the budget, not knowing what the reval amount was, I just basically carried those forward from the previous year. Now we have since I've done the depreciation run to the 31st of October, I've got a better idea now as to what the actual depreciation is. This doesn't have any material impact on the budget per se, because we back out the depreciation at the end of the summary sheet to come back to more of a balance of the budget with less depreciation. So just adjusted those to reflect where you'd be going with those. Over on page 59, the council income is with the project infrastructure project money going into the new council dwelling. It'll just be a little bit more income generated from there from the rent received. So you've got really a big issue there. Okay, over the page we've got swimming pool income. I decreased the income by 28,700. Again, this is a guesstimate, but based on the council's resolution in December to give free entry and to give discounted full memberships. It's a wait and see. I don't know how we'll go with it, but hopefully canteen sales will go up and things, and we may hit the target. But so I'll just reduce that to a figure that I thought we might be able to achieve. Likewise with the sporting complex income, the gym that was being used a lot less, it was actually only being used 2 hours a day basically. And people, again, then wanted their money for their annual gym memberships back, so we've been refunding a lot of that. So I've just decreased it to what I believe we may get.
And sorry, right, can I ask you a question on the next one before you go ahead?
Yeah.
The parks and gardens, how do they make income of 56,000?
Oh, sorry, in that parks and gardens, income is Crown management plans. It's not income from users.
Right.
So it's actually income is from ground management management plan. There was income of 44,000, which we had to prepare plans for, and then we received a war memorial upgrade grant of 4,000. They not actually use the charges whatsoever. We come down to the showground racecourse. We were successful in receiving $120,000 from New South Wales BPI to upgrade the electrical works out of the showground. There's a contra capital expense item for that, so the budget isn't impacted with that. The building control income again is adjusted to the actual income received to date. There may be other slight adjustments in the March review if we get more income in that area. The gravel pits income and expenditure, we put an amount in the start of the year, but with the way the budget has been going and the way we're going to finish all our regime and so forth, there will not be any, we don't believe, so just deleted those from the budget. And then we come across to the roads. As with seasonal conditions have changed, we've had a fair bit of rain, and then also the heavy traffic through the great harvest that we had during November, December. We've had to do a lot of patching and roadside slashing and grading of our roads, which really put the costs up. So we've had to try and protect the integrity of our maintenance and knowing that we're hoping that we'll have another good, fairly good cotton harvest in March, April, but we may need to do a lot more work. So we had to delete out of the capital section from the Warrentown streets upgrade the money in the areas to prop up the actual maintenance of our local urban and rural roads, and those are the figures that come back to the 254 with a couple of little adjustments. Again, excuse me. Appreciation adjustments again, as I mentioned, all the roads, bridges and that, I've just moved those to what I believe the adjustments are going to be. The regional roads income, we were advised in December by Transport for New South Wales that our block grant for 2020-21 would not be increased. We anticipated an increase when we took the budget back in March. So we only got the same as what we did previous year, so it's a reduction of $31,000 there, which is offset by the line underneath where I've taken $31,000 out of the maintenance on regional roads. Again, the depreciation adjustments. Then we come down to the aerodrome. With the implementation of the avgas, I've just put a couple of line items in those to correspond to what we've actually purchased. We purchased one load of avgas, and we're currently selling that out. So I'm just putting an arbitrary figure in those areas to hopefully come close to where we might be. Then we come over the page to the auxiliary services. So with the storm out at Nevertire, we've had to do additional works, whether it be chopping, or getting the chopped or shredded, and our men out there. So we've taken 20,000 out of the Warrentown auxiliary and put propped up another type. And it's in all services. And we come down to the project management employees, that's 7254 is from basically transferred from the engineering area for the housing subsidy. And work motivation for restricted funds.
So project management is, does it cover a few different projects? What does that mean?
That is basically just the project manager, the infrastructure project manager, and the project administrator. That's just their salary costs only, nothing to do with project themselves.
Okay, thanks.
So we're coming to our internal restricted funds. We had a survey undertaken of the CBD area back in August, I think. That was the cost for that survey. And then transfer out of 220 out of the infrastructure reserve to go to the council chambers fit out, which was resolved in the December 20 council meeting. Then, as I said before, the depreciation adjustment, it's the balancing item, so all the depreciation adjustments above total 175,541. That's where I back up it out of the report to come back to more of a cash basis. 20 tools, had to find an additional 5,000 for tools that we buy the employees. The engineering, we had to reduce the CTC installation to prop up the depot improvements. And just moved the money for the admin, office equipment and furniture and fitting purchases. And the 220 comes in from the infrastructure reserve for the council building renovations. The mobile swim pool, we had to buy a new thing that has to go on the bottom of the pool to clean it up for the little pool. Once we put the new filtration unit in, it needed to be a smaller unit to be put in, so we had to purchase one of those. Then we come down to the big eye, the swimming pool refurbishment. I haven't made an adjustment in this budget review for the over expenditure at the moment. I'm hoping that we may have savings through the year that we'll be able to fund that. If not, it may be a situation that we'll have to take that from the infrastructure reserve funds to pay for the refurb, the overexpend on the refurb of the pool. I didn't want to drain any more out of the budget in operational areas at this stage because probably would need to find it at the March review. So by the March review, we might have a bit more of an idea as to what the final costings are on the pool, and also if we have possible savings in other areas that we'll be able to fund that project.
So I just wondered, just for greater clarity, you know how with under the sports complex, like in the budget review, it's got specific items. It's even got the Bain Marie, their projector. Is it possible to include that for the swimming pool refurbishment, like the individual items, or are they a bit unknown, or like just more specific?
Chair, there are probably 30 items, and I personally wouldn't guarantee we can be into the right areas. Whereas these little ones here, that were just one-offs, that were put in the budget originally, that were identified. Refurbishment, yeah, you're probably looking at about 30 job costs. Yeah, and I wouldn't guarantee that we would be in the right areas personally. Certainly, I can give a list of the 30. I don't think I put it into the document. I could send that to the council for the itemised. I can do that, no problem. But to put that into the budget, then you're really stretching it right out, that's all.
And there's no suggestions, councillors, that the money's being spent elsewhere for swimming pool. It's just a bigger bucket than the
Okay, then we come down into the disabled lift that we're putting into the pool. We received a grant of $10,000 for that, but of course it's going to cost us about 12. Then the other ones are just adjusted to the actual expense were for the minor equipment purchase at the sporting complex. The switchboard upgrade at the showground, 120, which was funded by the grant money, as previously said. We come down to CBD improvements, that was the survey that was undertaken, and the funds were taken from the CBD improvement reserve. This week, come together the Warren Town streets upgraded to 254, and we are paid to the local urban rural roads maintenance, and also to fund the Nevertire Village upgrade a bit lower, and the Nevertire Bogan railway crossings survey that was undertaken. The Nevertire Bogan railway crossing survey may come into Rossi funds down the track. Yeah, Rossi funds. We may hopefully get that back, and if so, we'll obviously put that back into the capital section of roads, but I don't believe it might be undertaken in this budget review.
Rossi stuff.
Roads of significant importance.
Roads.
Over the page, there's no really any adjustments, it's just bringing down into the actual plant items that we auctioned and the monies were received, and then the contra entry is the light trading above. So then we go to the water fund. Only minor adjustments in that in the water fund. Other income of 1668, which is adjusted due to a water connection out on Eldra Road. The balancing item 12 on our restricted funds was adjustments to depreciation. We purchased some, I think it was some gas equipment for the chlorine, for the water supply. And I just adjusted the Eldra Reservoir Cross Connect. We must be doing some more work and took down the groundwater expenses grant so that we're to receive. So there's no real big issues in the water fund or the rest of the sewer fund. Sewer fund, we've only basically brought the depreciation down to what is anticipated and then offset it again with the balancing item. So there were quite a few adjustments in the review, but like I said, a few major ones. But we were able to produce a balanced review, and hopefully, when we get to the March, we may be able to make some savings. And as I say, the biggest one is the swing floor refurb. When we look at that, it's probably the only unknown. We're getting close to being totally finished. I think there's still the backwash thing that still has to be put in. Once we know all those costs and things, hopefully we'll have the savings throughout the year.
Thank you. Any further questions for Minister of Finance?
Just one.
Councillor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And before I ask it, I think you've done an amazing job. Thank you for all this information in the business paper. It's really thorough and it's really helpful. Thank you. And I just, under, on page 24 of the document, just manufacturing and construction, under income, what kind of items does that include? Manufacturing and construction, is that across the board or is it specific?
Mr. Chairman, it's basically, it's got building control, it's got quarries, and it's got gravel pits. And that's the subheading that under the AAS27 that the department put out some time ago. So I just follow those headings. So we start with general purpose revenues, then we go to governance, we go to administration, public health and order. So I've just been following those, and under those they had sub-items of what you would put under it. So, things like you've got housing and community services, and you've got public cemeteries, which is that under housing criteria, but that's where they are. So under that line in manufacturing, basically building control, income, quarries and pits. Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Brewer.
A simple one, I hope. We're going to line item 1700 showground racecourse operations, and the adjustment in of income of $120,000 for the grant there. Then later on in 3360 item 0015, there's a small amount there taken out. Is that, I don't understand there's one there for a switchboard upgrade. Where are we? Three couple pages later on. Not a great deal, but I don't understand that being reported twice. Is that just simply one in and one out transferred to another fund?
That's 1750 is the grant coming in, the income.
Yep.
And the 3360 is the capital expense.
From that.
Going back out, so, yeah, so it's basically, you boost your income and boost your expenses. There's no material impact on the budget whatsoever, there's no variance because it's in and out. A bit like the hazard reduction, the extra income we're going to receive from the hazard reduction, I increased the expense by that amount. So, we didn't have to find anything for it, it's just identifying it in the budget that our grants are going to go up by 120,000 and our capital expense will go up by 120,000.
Yep.
Any other further questions? We'll go back to open council. No? Okay, on the motion, we'll move back to open council. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Lynch, thank you. We're back in open council. Now, recommendation of the amendments for the itemised budget as listed in the December 2020 budget review be authorised. Councillor Taylor and Councillor Beach has moved those motions. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. Do you want to keep going, councillors? There's only 4 items left. Happy to go through? Okay. Sorry?
They're much involved in it.
No, I don't think so. You can find out. Okay.
Oh, can I make a request then? Can we stand?
Oh, we'll stand in a sec, okay? You're funny here in the wall. Okay. I'll move on to the reports of the Manager and Engineering Services. That report is the 2020-2021 Country Roads Grant, Round 2 submission, and the Great Government COVID-19 Local Roads Community Infrastructure Program Phase 2. Can I have a mover and a second? Mover, Councillor Drews, a seconder, Councillor Derrick, Councillor Drews.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to move that recommendation. I think it's great to be in with the government departments and thank them if we are successful with them. I think that's great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. Okay, all those in favour? Against? Yep. No one against? Okay, we'll move on to reports of the Manager of Health and Development. Item 1 is development application approvals. You might go to standing. Thank you. I've got to read the one. Is that for the Manager?
Do the Manager of Engineering Services want to speak on that?
I was just going to say, on a couple of pieces of rubbish, went to say, if you want to have a look at it.
Sorry, Councillor, I missed that one. Thank you. Okay, government application approvals. Can I have a information being received today? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Brewer, seconder. Councillor Beach, thank you. All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, let's go. Thank you. Okay, please do the main. Okay, we get on to item 2, a request to revoke a menacing dog declaration. Can I have a recommendation, please? Councillor Levy.
I'd like to move that we change the recommendation, only because I feel that there's been the provision of 2 sources of information, and I don't think they marry up enough for me to make that informed decision that I think is needed in this situation. I know that we did deliberate a lot in the August meeting about keeping the order.
So can I just ask what we're changing the resolution to?
Yes, it is correct.
To it?
Okay, well, I'm changing it to, I would recommend that, so instead of that recommendation, that a witness, according to the information provided, there was a witness. So the witness report be provided, the sheep owner, as per procedural guidelines, I guess, that would require a witness's report, as to the type of dogs, I guess, that they saw put the sheep in. A witness's report and the age of the dog. I'd like information on the age of the said dog at the time of the incident and what behavioural training the dog has, if any. And that come back to the February meeting. So, yeah, if someone might like to add, or
I might just move over to Deputy Manager, he might be able to reframe that. That's okay with you, Councillor?
yes,
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, from what I'm hearing from Councillor Irving, I'm hearing that you want to defer any decision on this report.
yes,
So that would be number one, that this report be deferred, and now hearing for a workshop to be held with council staff to be able to provide additional information, and two, that a further report come back, or that the deferred report come back to the February meeting. That's item 2. For council.
Councillor, you
Yes,
happy?
I'm happy, thank you, General.
Councillor Leach, you happy to second that? Take that?
Can I just ask,
Can I have any other questions? Yes.
in all of this, is the actual owner of the shed going to be also approached just to go over what actually, it's not very convincing. Is that possible?
Mr Deputy Mayor, that is certainly possible.
Approach that person?
You'll notice in the letter that is attached to the report there is an offer to answer questions. If council would like to have the owners present for that workshop or for part of the workshop.
Not the owners, no, sorry.
I would.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about the owner of
I
the
don't
shed.
think there's enough evidence, it's all circumstantial and anecdotal. I don't think there's any evidence that the dog did all of these things. I don't think there's enough in there, to be honest with you. And I don't actually think we're going to get to that point for the February meeting, to be quite honest.
May not understand.
I'm asking for the owner of the shed to be approached again, isn't it? They don't have to come to the meeting, just to try and, it's not clear either.
Councillor Ward, would you like a letter from the owner, official letter from the owner stating what he is saying? Is that what you're asking, Councillor? Yes. Is that correct? A letter
Of the sheep.
of the owner of the sheep, how our ranger is coming to the information? You'd like an official letter from the owner. Is that possible? The statement? Is that for sure?
No, I can certainly, we'll get that organised for sure. Should the owner wish to participate, yeah.
And I think it's arranged, our ranger should be at that workshop.
That's correct.
Yeah, correct, yes, I'd like to have the ranger there.
You still like to pursue the issue
Would you, Councillor Brewer, do you like to have the owner there, or would you rather just have a statement from the owner? What would your view be there?
I think that there's a lot of emotion tied up in all of this, but I don't know, not experienced enough in this sort of thing to say whether the owner can add any more by being there. It's very clear that the owner is not convinced that their dog did all of these things. I'm also not convinced that the sheep owner is going to know that either, because it doesn't appear to me that from what the ranger presented to us in the August meeting is convinced me enough either at the time that this was the dog, and that, it just means that if it's not the dog, there's another dog getting around that should have this order placed on it, not this family pet, which seems to be one. I'm actually in favour of lifting the order and somehow ensuring that this doesn't happen again, it just seems to be a lot, this person seems to be diligent enough, and they talk about their dog in a fairly close way, so it's not some mongrel on a chain somewhere, it's a family pet. And I'm actually in favour of lifting the order and having the ranger review the situation. He's a paid employee who has the training and the knowledge to understand dogs, and I don't think we do in this forum. And I don't really think that putting it off until February and having all these other impact statements is a good use of our time when we employ someone to do these sorts of things who can liaise with the owner and make sure those things are in place. And if he's guided by management council and his job, then he should be able to make a judgment call on that animal. Isn't that what he's paid to do, after all? Now, the other side of that point is that if this dog is the menacing dog and gets around and we think that people's safety is a problem, then we reinstate the order immediately and get on with it. So I'm actually in favour of changing the resolution to lift the order, personally, and I'm sorry, Councillor Irving, I'm speaking against putting it off until February. So I think that the ranger is employed to do these things, and he should be allowed to do his job.
Can I just stop you for a second?
Councillor, can I just tell, with the conduct of the meeting, we've got a mover of a motion only, not a seconder as yet, and we have I would call an amendment, but you move your amendment first until you get a seconder before you're... Councillor B, like I say, so got that. Okay. So Councillor Brewer, would you like to move what you've just said as an amendment to the motion?
I'm simply going to speak against this motion.
No, I understand that.
The recommendation put in front of us.
Yeah, because what we can do, and again, this is the way that business can be conducted. If you move an amendment, the council or you as a council have to consider the amendment first, and it's voted on. If the amendment gets up, it then becomes the motion. If the amendment falls away, then you can debate and decide on the motion. Does that make sense? Sure. So if you would like just to have that, and that would be recorded then in the minutes that you have moved an amendment to the motion. Once we've got the seconder, and then we can deal with the amendment first and go on to the motion.
Councillor Brewer.
I would like to amend the recommendation to lift the order and have the ranger monitor the dog more closely and liaise closely with the owner.
Okay. So two things, sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor. One is that the menacing dog declaration relating to POSH, microchip, whatever that number is, be removed, and two, that the general manager monitor the dog
behaviour and ongoing sort of monitoring of that dog, I guess.
Okay, the general manager monitors the dog for the next 6 months.
Well, delegated authority to the ranger.
No, you only have discretion over the general manager. You can't tell anybody else what to do, unfortunately. I will pass that down, of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's a two-part amendment.
We're not moving that, are we?
No.
You can vote on it.
You're going to vote on it. You're not moving that one. You're going to vote on the amendment first.
Yeah, no, we need a second first.
If it fails, then we go to your original recommendation and we vote on that recommendation.
So we've got an amendment moved by Councillor Brewer. We need a seconder.
Actually happy to. I agree with Councillor Brewer. Actually, I didn't go that far, but I did. Yeah. It's just that I was initially thinking that way, that Councillor Brewer was, only because, if I can speak.
No, not yet. We haven't got a seconder.
And we need a seconder first.
Because if we don't get a seconder, the amendment falls away. There's nothing in front of you. You need a mover and a seconder. No, well, not really.
Anyone would like to second that councillor Brewer's recommendation?
So what can happen, if it falls away, you can vote on the motion. The motion can then fall away if you choose to. That means that somebody should foreshadow a new motion, which might be, then that's your opportunity, councillor Irving, to support. Just a little bit of protocol. Sorry.
Councillor Derrick? Yes.
Can I ask a question just to clarify? So I guess the extent to which we can monitor or ask the owner to provide information for that 6-month period. Like, to what extent does that go, and can we be comfortable that that's going to be enough to prevent something else happening?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, it's a really good question, and I have no idea. There won't be anybody monitoring this animal 24/7. I suppose you look at the physical constraints, and it unfortunately will only be anecdotal. You won't know if it's done something wrong until it does something wrong, unfortunately. And that might just be breaking out if in fact it has to be constraining about that. I don't know.
Just ask a question, was it a requirement that we had to get on the training? Was that a requirement or?
Councillors, just a little bit of history. Prior to the declaration of a menacing dog being in legislation, it used to be under the dangerous dog, be called dangerous dog. And that, for that declaration to be revoked, you had to go to the local court. So by introducing the menacing dog, it's taken the review of the declaration out of the local court into the council. So there are two requirements under the legislation that's in the report in the conclusion that council has to be satisfied that the dog's not going to, these are my words, it's not going to do what it's apparently done in the future based on training, which is part 2 of that legislation.
Can I follow on from that question? I still support the original motion is to leave it to 1 month. But we can ask for this particular training for this dog. 1 month is not very long, just to be on the safe side as far as council's concerned.
So councillors, you have an amendment by councillor Brewer without a seconder at the moment. You generally call that 3 times, a bit like an auction.
Second time, third time up. There's no second, sorry, councillor Brewer.
It drops away. So you just have the motion of councillor Irving and Beach in front of you.
Can I also ask a question?
Yes, you can. Councillor.
This dog, this was to occur, this dog might do the same thing or a similar thing. Okay, it's not a child. But what happens if something happens again? Do we go through this whole process again?
Probably. And it might even be declared a dangerous dog.
Is there any level, if you revoke this, is there any level above that in all these regulations that still means that it has to abide, or the owners have to abide by certain regulations? Is there levels? I don't know the answer, but
I'm not sure. It'd be a good question if you had a workshop.
I'm going to speak for the original motion. I think we're all a bit undecided here. I can understand where councillor Brewer's going, everyone's going. I think we need a bit more information. I know councillor Brewer's, month's not going to matter. I'm with councillor Taylor there. We want a bit more information on behaviour training for starters and what rules we actually can do with the Menacing Dog Act. And I'd like to talk to the ranger about that, what we can put in place. On here, you've got it through to the 7th of August where it's got to go to, it's got to be replaced anyhow, but another month's not going to matter. I agree with you. For me, councillor Irving's original motion, I think, is the right way to go. I'm for it. Anyone against that? If anyone want to talk properly?
Can we just, sorry, Mr. Deputy, can we just, Jodie, can we just repeat what the motion is of councillor Irving, seconded by councillor Beach?
When it's possible to probably provided by the sheep owner, age of the dog, behaviour training, and then the information come back to the February meeting.
Nothing about a workshop? Did you want a workshop in there? No, you just wanted to come back to the next meeting? Councillor Walpole, you moved the motion.
That's exactly what I said, I think, was the, witness report, age of the dog, what behaviour training the month had, and come back to the February meeting. I'm not sure if the workshop, if someone would like to speak about a workshop, I'm not sure how productive a workshop would be. Am I allowed to just say one more thing? I guess, yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but I guess what we're saying is the evidence isn't quite there yet as to whether the dog should be kept under that that menacing dog order, only because the ranger saw the dog attacking with another dog, which can sometimes make a dog worse in its behaviour, when there's two, a kangaroo. Now, the kangaroos at the time were what I'd say were vermin, because there were too many of them on Victoria Oval during the drought. And this happened during the drought when there are a lot of kangaroos around on Victoria Oval. And vermin, according to the Act, dogs are exempt from this order if they're chasing vermin. And I just feel that we need a witness statement that they saw this dog chasing the sheep into the river.
It actually says dogs. This is where it's very confused. Sorry, to interrupt the three users.
Yeah, Councillor Walker, yes.
It says dogs. And then it's a dog. So I don't understand why there's just one dog when it says dogs have travelled in the direction towards the river, the hospital, and the sheep. The dogs, of course. But now we're talking about one dog, so that's a little bit grey also in this whole report.
I think it's got to go back. Sorry, it's got to come back to the February meeting. I think we've discussed it enough now. It's been around the table. I think we vote. Those in favour of the motion. In favour, yes. Those against? No. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, okay, let's go to item 3. Item 3 is the request for a convenient exception on lots 53 and 54, Deacon Drive in Youngborough Estate, Warren. Government, sorry.
I'll move the recommendation.
Yep, second, yes. Oh, Councillor Taylor moved it, Councillor Cruz seconded, yes. Sorry. Item 3.
Oh, sorry, you do too.
Oh, sorry, no, sorry. We haven't decided your interest in this before we go move to second that one. Councillor Levy is leaving this room. We'll just wait for Councillor Levy moves. She's running. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Levy has left the room. Okay. Now, can we have the mover on that is Councillor Taylor, the seconder is Councillor Cruz. Councillor Taylor, with respect to the motion, please.
Just moving the recommendation under that section B that they can change it. We have done it before. I noticed that the development application hasn't been lodged as yet. Therefore, it has to be that approved material in that development application, I assume.
That would be staff decision. If the council were to resolve the way it's been recommended, that gives the general manager permission to go away from the terms of restrictions and do it with the DA.
Any other further questions? No? Okay. If there's no further questions, or those in favour? All those in favour? Against? Nil? Thank you. Can we get Councillor Levy back in, please? Okay, we'll just keep going. If there is no further business in Monterey Council today, we'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Yeah, councillors.